The video is coming up. There we go. So great to be with all of you today. And as Kevin said, sharing some virtual tips and tricks. And you might be saying, hey, like we've been doing this since March. We've got this covered, right? We know what we've been doing. Well, we've been doing it for several years now. And with the hundreds of sessions that we've hosted and that we've produced, one thing we know is that with technology, Murphy's Law is alive and well. And I think you all know what I'm referring to when I say Murphy's Law, right? If something can go wrong, it will. And we've seen a lot of it and we figured a lot of it out. And we've had a lot of fun in the virtual environment. So we just wanted to share, as Kevin said, those tips and tricks with you. To get us started, we do have a poll that Ben's going to go ahead and launch for us. Just wanted to get some quick feedback from all of you that are in today's session. Just what are your thoughts around virtual meetings or working here in this virtual environment? So there's the poll. You've got 4 questions within this poll, so please answer all 4 of them and click submit when you're done. Actually, I think on this one, you just have to answer the question, no need to click submit. And then once it looks like the majority of people have had a chance to answer the question, please go ahead and you can close it out. Got 4 questions there. Great way for us to just get a sense for where you all are at. So let's look at how you responded here. All right, so what holds your organization back from having those productive virtual meetings and events? It's that attendee engagement and participation. We are going to talk about that a little bit at the beginning of today's talk. On an average, how many meetings are you attending per week? We were really interested in seeing where this fell out for everybody. So looking like 1 to 5 meetings per week was where the majority of you landed. Some of you are in that 16 plus range, 13% of you. That's where I fell, that's for sure. All right, so for most virtual meetings you participate in, how would you describe your role? All right, so many of you are in there as an attendee or a contributor. About 25% of you here today are in there as the host. Perfect, and did we have was there another question there, Ben? Maybe not. If so, we can look at that. Just curious what platform that you're using. So if you can go ahead and just put that in chat. Again, just out of curiosity, wondering, and I think this is great information for everybody because there are so many platforms out there now. As you know, we use Zoom here, but I think there's more and more platforms that are coming on the market. And so just curious to see what people are using and how you're using them. You'll see some members are plopping in multiple platforms in chat, and we know that some people are doing that, right? They're using Teams for their internal meetings, and then they're using platform like WebEx or Zoom for external meetings. So please go ahead and share that in chat with everyone. And Ben, if you go to the next slide for me, please. So first thing I just wanted to talk about, and that is your role as the facilitator. And I know for many of you here, you're not often in that role, but when you are, it's really important that you understand these 3 things here, right? What is the objective for the meeting? What is the functionality of the platform? And what is your role as the facilitator? So when I say that you want to understand the objective, it's what is the meeting that you're having? Or let me step back and let me call it an event, right? What is the virtual event that you're hosting? Is it a meeting with just your team? Is it a whole department-wide meeting? Is it maybe a company meeting? Is it an external meeting? Is it a sales meeting, right? That definitely has some different implications to it. Is it a conference that you're putting on? So what is this event that you're planning virtually? And what do you hope to do with it? Like, what do you want to have happen during that session? What do you want the end result to look like? understanding why or what type of meeting it is or event that you're hosting is going to help you design it the correct way. It's also going to help you pick the correct platform. And for those of you that have at your disposal more than one platform, understanding the objective of this event that you need to host will help you pick the correct platform. And that brings us to understanding the functionalities of your platform. So as I said, many platforms out there, and some of the platforms that are out there, like Zoom, has Zoom Meeting and they have Zoom Webinar. WebEx has Meeting Center, Training Center, Event Center. GoToTraining goes to Meeting, go to Training, and go to, I think it might be Events. I forget that one. But so even the platform itself has different accounts or licenses that you can get, and they each do something a little bit different. So it's really important when you're going to host a virtual event that you understand what your platform can do. One, it will help you pick the right platform to use, and then it will help you maximize the tools within that platform to create that engagement that so many of you said is really what is preventing you from having those productive meetings. And also understanding the functionality of your platform is going to allow you to design appropriately. And Susan's going to talk to you about some of our lessons learned in not only the events that we put on, but in hosting and supporting our members in hosting their events. And we start in this process of saying, hey, I'd really like to do this with my event, right? Only then to find out when you're further down the road that your platform can't handle that brilliant idea that you had. So really understanding what your platform can do and what it cannot do, right? What is the functionality that your platform is able to do will really help you host a really good meeting. And then finally, right, understand your role as the host or as the facilitator. I love that all the platforms call the role, right, the host role, because I do see that as you being the host of this meeting. It's like you hosting guests to your house, right? These are people that you've invited into this meeting, and seeing yourself as that host is really going to help you create that really engaging event, because it's going to put you in that position of understanding that these participants in this room, all 86 of you here in this session right now, when I look through the participant panel, I see your name. You are all guests in our session, and we want to make you feel accepted. We want to make you feel welcomed here, right? And we can do that by using and leveraging the tools in the classroom. But first, and I will get to that in a moment, but first you really have to accept that role, right? That you are the host and that you need to guide this event and take care of everybody in this event. So Ben, go to the next slide for me. The good news is in most platforms, the tools that I'm showing here on the slide are pretty standard, and you have these available to you to help you really be that host in your session. So the first there is the hand raising feature. And I know here in Zoom webinar, the hand raising feature is not available. At least I'm 99% sure that it's not available. In Zoom meeting, it is. But understanding that if you have the hand raising feature available to you, how to use that, right? The hand raising feature of all the features in the platform is the most closely related to raising your hand in a physical meeting room or classroom, right? It's an easy way for the people in your session to signal to you that they want to ask a question or they want to add a comment, right? They have something to say. If you're in a really small meeting, it's just a few of you in the meeting, probably not necessary to use the hand raising feature. But you get 6 or more people in a session, it can really help the flow of communication. So if you introduce this tool to people and you ask people to use it, what happens is now you have people that feel better, feel more confident about indicating, hey, I've got something I want to say, because they're not nervous about speaking over somebody else. Because if we think about it, we've probably all been in those meetings where we start to speak, or I should say those virtual meetings, right? We start to speak, somebody else starts to speak, then we don't know who's going to go next. We don't always have those visual cues that let us know how to gauge who's going to talk. And then so we just don't say anything. So it really discourages conversation if you don't manage that well. You as the host manage that. And one way to do that easily is with the hand raising feature. The other way is when people do start talking over each other, you're kind of like the traffic cop with conversation. So if two people start speaking, you can step in and say, hey, Mary, you go first, and then Bruce, you can go next, right? So either way you want to manage that, an easy way to do it is asking people to raise their hand, and then understand where you will see these hands raised. Usually it's in your participant panel, and then use that to help the flow of conversation. The other thing most platforms have is the ability to give a yes/no indicator. It's usually a green check or a red X. This is a perfect way for you to quickly poll everybody in the group and get that quick response. So think about those times you've been in that meeting scheduled to go 2 hours, and the host of the meeting says, you know what, if we work through lunch, we can get out of here a half hour early. Who wants to do that? And then people don't know how to respond, or everybody responds at once. It's hard to really gauge what the vote is. Yes, no is a great way to say, all right, give me a green check if you want to work through lunch, red X if you don't. And then you as the host or the facilitator of this meeting can quickly see who's given you these green checks or red X's, or the yes, the no's, and you know you've got your answer on what people want to do. Chat is another great tool. We use it here in these sessions, so you get it, right? With chat, you can have that concurrent conversation. This is something that you cannot have in a face-to-face meeting. This is something that you absolutely want to leverage. This is, I think, a gift of the virtual platform, right? Whether it be a meeting or a training session, you can say to everybody, hey, I'd love to hear your thoughts, or let's brainstorm this, and have everyone go to chat, put their ideas in all at once. You get all of this feedback, and the chat can be saved. So it can be highly productive in a small meeting or a larger meeting to use the chat to get some really good data. Polls, as you know, we use polls all the time. Great thing about polls is polls are anonymous. And if you let people know that, right, polls are a great way to get some really good feedback from your folks as well. And then lastly, a tool that, while we don't use it here in these Tuesday webinars, because Zoom webinar doesn't allow for breakouts, but many platforms have, or many companies that have virtual platforms have at least one version that does allow for breakout rooms. And we are going to use it, as Kevin said, in our December 15th event, because we are going to put you in breakout rooms to allow you to do some networking with each other. But breakout rooms are a great way to break people down into smaller groups to have them work together. This works really well when you want to get some great ideas out of a group of people. It allows everybody to have a voice, something that's more difficult in a larger group. And it's great for those people in your group that maybe are a little bit more introverted and won't speak up as easily in a large group. You can break everybody out into those smaller groups, give them an assignment, give them something that they are to work on, right? There's a purpose for this breakout group, come back, and then you can have everybody share ideas. So all of these tools here are just a great way to really create that engagement that you also had indicated, right? That's tough for your meetings. Because what happens is we get into these meetings, and we don't think about it ahead of time. We don't, and we may ourselves as the host or facilitator of the meeting not be really comfortable with all of these tools, so we don't leverage them. And that can really inhibit that engagement and participation. Where if you take the time to get comfortable with what the platform that you're using, the tools of that platform, what it has to offer you, then you can increase that participation. And you as a host really can take care of your people and help them to feel comfortable and really a part of the session. So I do believe that is all for me. They are some of my quick facilitation tips for you. We have a lot more to share with you. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Susan Zoll, who will talk to you about some really good, interesting lessons learned.
All right. Well, thank you, Mags. I did see someone ask us to review the yes, no feature. I think that is something you can just use where you can ask a yes, no question, similar to using the green check, red X, and then just pop it into chat to do a quick poll. So hopefully that clears that up. So yes, we've been doing lots of virtual training over the years, but especially this last year, and I've learned a few tips that I'd like to share with you today. Mag's already talked about the platform capabilities, and so knowing your platform. And I'll just share an example. I was running a conference for one of our members recently, and it was decided to use Zoom webinar, which is what we're using today. Zoom webinar is really intended to be sort of a one-way presentation, and you don't have webcams for attendees, and you can't unmute yourself. So it is really, it was already decided to use that webinar platform, and then down the line, they decided they wanted to do breakouts. Well, webinar cannot do breakouts, whereas Zoom meeting is intended to be much more collaborative. Attendees can unmute, attendees can bring their webcams up, and you can go into breakout rooms. So we worked around it by just creating separate Zoom webinar meetings, Zoom webinars for the breakout sessions. So everyone in the main session had to leave the main session, log into their appropriate breakout webinar, and then in an hour they logged out and came back into the main session. So it was a little clunky, but we made it happen. Again, if we had thought ahead of time, we could have used Zoom meetings and made it work. So something to keep in mind. A checklist is just, I find it's really great with all the details that are involved, from logins to contact information, materials, just helps me to focus on running an event or speaking at an event or whatever part or role you're playing at an event or meeting. The producer role is what I'm usually playing, and I find it is really critical. Again, the higher the stakes, the more you want to put some of these practices into place. Having a producer there, they can act as tech support for the attendees, and they also support the trainer with running those polls, as you saw Ben do earlier. So Mags could just present and didn't have to worry about running the poll. They can also be clearing some of those nonverbal feedback tools like the hand raise or the checks, which will be used more in our Zoom meeting platform. So you may not see them here today. Excuse me. So really critical to have that producer. They really support the trainer. Again, allow the trainer to focus on what they're delivering, or the presenter, and they're there as support. They also will do pre-event tech checks. And these really are to avoid any of those last minute issues you might be having. You can check the connection ahead of time, the sound, is the webcam working? Does the trainer look like they're in the witness protection program? If so, they might have too much lighting in the back, so maybe bring the lighting to the side or front. You want to make sure that you have your webcam at eye level. So don't be afraid to use books or a box to bring your computer or laptop so that you're looking right into the webcam. I have my laptop right now on a box so that it's at eye level. We'll also go over things like, is the PowerPoint sharing correctly, and can they share the videos? Is everything working? I recommend, if you're doing a training, to have a second monitor so that you can put over there the participant list, and you can see if someone's raising their hand over there. You can put your chat over there, and then have your screen where you're delivering your training and just looking at your PowerPoint. It's doable without, but it makes life a lot easier. One of the biggest things I say is to hardwire into the internet, if possible, with an Ethernet cable. If not, be as close to your router as possible. I know many of us are working from home, we're sharing space with kids and spouses, and you might not be able to be close to your router. You can buy a very long Ethernet cable to plug in. And again, when the stakes are really high and you don't want your computer to go down, I would recommend that. And I can't stress enough how important it is when you're doing a tech check that you're doing it on the computer that you'll be using on the day of the event, and that you do it in the same location. We ran an event in the spring where we had done a tech check with a guest speaker, and his Everything was fine. It was great. He looked great, sounded great. Day of the event, he came in, the webcam was choppy the entire time. Turned out he had moved locations, and I suspect he moved further away from the router. So there's a very important lesson learned. Make sure you do it in the same location. And you want to have some contingency plans in place. And we all know Murphy's Law, as Mag said, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. So you want to have a contingency plan. You want to have shared cell phone information, for example, with the trainer, presenter, and attendees. And that way, if you have a way to connect outside of the platform if something goes wrong. I had an attendee lose power during training, but I had shared my cell phone with her prior, so she was able to call me. And I walked her through how to download the Zoom app and log in and attend the training on her phone until her power came back on. So she was able to not miss the training. We had a trainer recently who lost power and therefore their internet. And I was able to call her and we walked through how to use your phone as a hotspot. You can get your internet through your phone. And she had, that's why it's important to have your phone fully charged, your laptops fully charged. I have 2 laptops fully charged usually when I'm running an event, so I can switch to another one if something goes down. Actually, this just happened this morning. 3 minutes before we were ready to start this webinar, Mags lost power or lost her internet. And she was going to use her phone as a hotspot, but fortunately it came back. So these things happen and just you got to plan for them. I also think it's great if you have you have your trainer logged in as an attendee also, so you can see on the separate computer or phone what view they're seeing. So you don't have to be asking, do you see my PowerPoint? What are you seeing? You can quickly look and see what attendees are seeing. And that also is good too if something goes down with one of the devices, the trainer or facilitator, presenter is on another device. Also would suggest if there's any videos to be shared during this event, have them saved on a Word document or quickly accessible. Let's say you're doing a sales meeting and you have a product video that you want to show and it's not working. What do? Well, you can quickly grab those links if you've kept them handy and send them through chat or email them. So just having those backup plans, it really helps to enable you to keep calm. Some troubleshooting, best laid plans, you've done your tech checks, you have your checklists, you have your contingency plan, but the day of the training comes and you're working with the trainer and the trainer's voice is going in and out. This trainer never had any issues before. So I started thinking, okay, log off, log back in. That typically is going to fix your issue. It's kind of like the turn off your computer, turn it back on. Well, it didn't fix it this time. And so, you have to also remain calm in those situations so you can focus on problem solving. And know if you accept that things are going to go wrong, you can remain more calm. So I started thinking what might be draining things on her internet bandwidth. And I knew she had kids, so I said, maybe are they playing video games? And she said, oh, no. But let me go check. They're in school. Well, she went and had a firm conversation with them, came back, and sure enough, audio was fine. So they must have been on some sort of video. I don't know, but that fixed the issue. So once again, things will go wrong. And at some point, you might not be able to solve the issue. At some point, the end user might be having a computer issue or there might be an internet problem on their end that they need to check with IT. So with that, I want to just share too that back to what Mag says, using all the tools, in our case, we do Zoom, showing people quickly how to use the tools if you want them to use it. Otherwise, they'll become disengaged. So this is a sample of a slide we do at every beginning of every training session we do, and the producer will review it to show some of the tools. On the next slide are some of the nonverbal feedback tools Mags mentioned earlier, like that hand raise that is available in Zoom meeting. So having those visuals just makes it really easy, and it only takes a couple minutes. So with that, I want to pass it on to Ben Hoover, who's usually the man behind the curtain, but you can see he's come out from behind the curtain. He's going to share more sort of deeper dive into the technology considerations and tell you how to take your conference from good to great with adding some bells and whistles. So over to you, Ben.
All right. Well, thank you, Susan. Just give me 1 second, pulling up my slides here. All right. So just real quick about me, I've been with MEA for 8 years or so. I've been behind the scenes on all these weekly webinars that we do, kind of just making sure that things are running smoothly. Side note, I think this is our 48th webinar since March or so when COVID started. So thank you for joining us for all these. So a bit of a disclaimer, I'm a digital native. I'm not an IT person. But I think that's kind of important for today's session is that, likely none of us are IT people. Um, so today I'm just kind of sharing, realistic things that we can all do to kind of take your, virtual presence to the next level. And so those include internet audio, your webcam, and then, some bells and whistles if you really want to go into hosting a conference. So first, I mean, most importantly, Susan talked about this. You need to have solid internet. So what are some symptoms of a poor internet connection? You could be experiencing, screen freezing, poor quality audio, your video is pixelated, or you're just flat out getting disconnected from your webinar. Um, and so, in that case, the first thing I would do would be, and you guys can do this right now if you want, go to Google. You're just going to type in speed test, and then you're going to hit run speed test. And so you're just going to let it do its thing here. And when it's done, it's going to spit out, a little analysis of your internet speed. Let's just give it 1 second. All right, so here you can see your internet connection is very fast. Your internet connection should be able to handle multiple devices streaming HD videos, video conference, and gaming at the same time. All right, so that's great. Now, I'm not going to give you a magic number here because technically you can get away with, pretty low numbers, but I would say, if you've got a family at home, everybody's either, streaming something on Netflix or they're doing kind of video conferencing school. If you were say around 50 here, I would consider contacting your ISP just to see what's part of your plan. Maybe if you can get that upgraded. Share my slides again. Okay, so the next thing, wired versus Wi-Fi. Like Susan said, it's just going to be more reliable if you can hardwire into your router with an Ethernet cable. So then a quick note about bandwidth usage. You may have this feature already on your router, and this is the thing you guys can check now if you want. So if you go down to the right-hand side, bottom right of your computer, you pull up your wireless internet, the networks that are available. Right here, you can see I'm connected to Netgear 25. That's mine. There's a little 5G after this one. So that's kind of like a higher level of wireless spectrum that you can connect to, and it may be faster and potentially less congested. So you have all the rest of your family say connected to Netgear 25 without the 5G, so that you kind of have priority when you're doing a big event. And so this is not, and you're hearing a lot about 5G, the new mobile standard. That's a little different. So let's get into audio. I mean, in my opinion, once you've got your internet down reliably, I think audio is the most important. I mean, like it's not the end of the world if your video isn't working or your video isn't perfect. But I think audio is really important. I think a lot of people in the past have been accustomed to dialing into webinars with their phone using, the dial-in number. I think if I'm remembering correctly, back at the beginning of COVID, Zoom actually had, and they actually may still be having problems with their dial in numbers just because of the sheer volume of people that are trying to call in all the time. So I think at this point I would suggest using computer audio as much as you can. And so then another, this brings up, if you can find a quiet location, that's really best, because Zoom does have some noise suppression features, but it's not really always perfect. Which a headset like you're hearing right now, a headset can go a really long way in eliminating background noise or other people that are in the room next to you. And so I just want to demonstrate that real quick. So right now, obviously, I'm on my headset audio. I'm going to switch to my laptop audio.
All right, so I sound very different. Like I can't hear what you guys are hearing, but I'm assuming, it picks up suddenly a whole lot of background noise. So that's just a quick example of what it sounds like.
Back to my headset. Okay, so now I should be back right here on the headset. So, I mean, generally without audio, there's just no substitute for having the mic close to the speaker's mouth. Even a cheap $40 headset is going to give you a decent upgrade over your laptop audio. So let's just move on real quick to webcams. If you're unhappy with the quality of your webcam that's built into your laptop, you could consider getting an external USB Full HD webcam. And the real advantage of that is obviously you're going to get a little bit better quality. But like, for example, it gives you a lot of flexibility as far as where you place that webcam. You've seen many people, I'm sure, on webinars with the upward angle, like looking up their nose, basically. This allows you to kind of be more flexible, put the webcam where you want, independent from your laptop. So now I'm going to just demonstrate that real quick. I'm going to switch over to my laptop webcam. There, so now you can see pretty different. I do have it raised up, but still not nearly as good quality as my external setup right now. So now switching back over. All right, and then lighting, arguably more important than the webcam. You want to minimize backlighting if you can. How many times have you been on a webinar where you have a window behind you and your laptop suddenly makes you really dark, so because there's light behind you? And then another important tip I wanted to bring up is that the newest versions of Zoom now do have a brightness slider. So this allows you to kind of fix your webcam on the fly if you're not in a great location. So you're going into your video settings in Zoom, and then you just check this adjust for low light box here, turn it on manual. It'll bring up the slider, allow you to make yourself darker and brighter. Let's talk about virtual backgrounds. Everybody asks about these because it's a super fun feature. So again, you're going down to your video button, pull up that little arrow, choose virtual background. I'm actually going to do this right now. Just give me 1 second. And because people want to have fun. So okay, here's if you're a Star Wars fan, the Millennium Falcon in the cockpit. Let's try. Here you go. If you're a Star Trek fan, Trekkie, there I am on the board of the Enterprise. Or you can do something more serious, obviously, and put something, a company logo branded behind you. You can do it for all your employees. Just bringing back up my slides. 1 second. All right. So I guess my final piece here is, what if you really wanted, so you're having kind of an end of the year event, you're going to have some people come in and speak to your company. What if you wanted to do this yourself? And so this is an adventure that we've had, especially since COVID, doing big conferences ourselves. and it gives you the opportunity to really raise the bar. You can have music pre-event, music during breaks. Uh, everybody's doing video these days. I think generally the days of bad video quality in webinars are pretty much gone. I mean, it used to be really, you know, you were lucky to have your video shared good quality that everybody's watching it at exactly the same time. Um, so that can bring an extra level to your events. What if you're the person running the conference? And I can just say this from my own experience. You're going to want to use multiple monitors. I've done it with 2. I would say I really wanted 3. And it sounds overboard, but if you consider that you're going to have like 10 windows open while you're running one of these things, that really helps. You're going to want to have a timeline for yourself of every single thing that's happening. You're going to want to have a second producer for sure, so they can get the next speaker figured out, ready to go, so that when the last one stops, you can have like a transition, and then they're ready to go right away. And then obviously rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. Um, you'll get comfortable, and hopefully minimize the things that are not smooth or going wrong. And then obviously after the conference, you have evaluations, follow-up communications, and then the last note. Zoom, I would say it does a decent job for big conferences, but if you're really serious about it, you could think about upgrading to an actual live streaming platform for even higher quality.